What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the Philly Frenzy podcast. And I'm your host, Matt, with my buddy Rob. What's going on, Rob?
Not much, man. Out here ready to do this quarterback quote unquote Wednesday podcast with you. We're a day late. We apologize for that. There was some external circumstances going on that caused us to be late, but we're here nevertheless to talk about the wild quarterback situation in the NFL.
All right, so yeah, it's quarterback Wednesday on a Thursday. Um, Biggest thing is we could jump in anywhere, and I think I'm going to jump in right at home with Philadelphia and Carson Wentz. I mean, there's no reason to start anywhere else when you have a controversy going on in your own backyard. And, it seems like the Eagles are looking for a first round draft pick. It was rumored they were looking for two first round draft picks. It was rumored Chicago offered a first round draft pick, Nick Foles and Tyreek Cohen. It was rumored that what they wanted they were going to receive. It seems that that is not the case. From a report from Ron Jaworski earlier today, he stated the best offer on the table is two second round draft picks from Indianapolis Colts. I believe, and Rob does believe this as well. We've had this conversation. That might be all they get. Um, you're talking about a guy who doesn't want to play there. He's shown that he doesn't want to play there. He's come out and, well, he hasn't actually come out because he's still not talking, but you know, everything's pointing to him not wanting to be there. And when you're trying to move a guy like that who's coming off of a bad year, who has a very big salary, how do you expect to get a first round draft pick? So I think 2 seconds is probably the top of what you're going to receive for Carson. If I'm Philadelphia and Howie Roseman, if I really want to move off of Carson and there's no turning back with Carson, which it doesn't seem like there is, for the simple fact that Howie calls, Carson doesn't answer. Anybody else calls, Carson answers. So you take the two second round draft picks and you run.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. At this point, I think it's a relationship that's broken beyond repair with him and Howie. He doesn't like Howie. He doesn't trust Howie. And like you just said, if he didn't come off such a rough year, you'd probably be able to get more for him. But when you have a guy that looks like, with that going from what he was to that many turnovers, that kind of makes you look like you're in your own head, especially because you couldn't get out of it all season.
Yeah.
And I think that drastically hurts what a team is willing to give you. And the only reason I think Indianapolis is even offering you 2 seconds is because, to be quite honest, they're pretty desperate to get a quarterback. Um,
And it's Frank
I think
Reich.
if they
He
weren't,
understands how to work with them.
yeah, I think the that's the two reasons you have a double second round pick offer is because you have the head coach in the GM's ear saying, "Hey, I can make this kid work. I know I can," but the GM is still has to do his job of trying to get it for the lowest price possible. And the situation the Eagles are in with Carson, with his poor performance and their broken relationship, they know they don't have to offer, a first round pick because I don't know that anybody's going to.
No, and I think the longer
It,
this
it,
goes on, you're going to see the value of Carson drop. Um, if this doesn't happen in the next week to 2 weeks, I think beginning of March, once the new year starts for football, the draft pick and the stock is going to drop. Um, I think that's why it's so important for Howie to make this deal right away. And back to real quick to a comment you made with Carson and Howie's relationship. I don't blame Carson. I am on the record for saying this multiple times on the show that you can't blame Carson for wanting out of Philadelphia when Howie Roseman hasn't done anything to help Carson. You You don't get receivers that actually make a difference on the field. You don't support them when it comes to drafting offensive linemen to put behind these older guys who have had injuries the last couple of years. You don't do anything that's saying, hey, Carson, we believe in you when you take a second round or a quarterback in the second round. So if I'm Carson, yes, I want out. And that's why he's not answering the phone for Howie Roseman. And I don't blame him. I mean, yeah, people are gonna say, "Oh, you're a crybaby. You want out. You don't want to. You're not gonna compete." It's not competing. He's your franchise quarterback supposedly, and you don't do anything to make him better. So I think like the whole relationship's over, done with. It needs to be old. Like, just throw it away, get what you could get, and get out. Um, Moving away from Carson, not going to sit here and have a 40-minute conversation like we usually do, because at this point I'm just getting irritated that nothing's being done. I wish Howie would just get fired and we'd keep Carson, because I think with Howie not there, we could keep Carson around. But we'll switch gears. We'll switch over to the other team on this podcast that's favorited in the Las Vegas Raiders. Rob, I know you said you've heard a little bit of rumbling coming out of Raiders camp.
So there was rumblings, of course, as the Deshaun Watson stuff hit, that we were going to be in trying to get Deshaun Watson, which of course you're trying to get Deshaun Watson if you can. Nobody can blame you. Gruden and the Raiders have since come out and publicly and very clearly stated that Derek Carr is not on the trade market. Basically telling teams to stop calling and inquiring about him, because they are at least 3 confirmed teams from what I'm understanding. I don't know who they are. Have been calling in reference to him. And then, of course, now in the past 2 days, you have the rumblings of Russell Wilson being unhappy. And is he on the trade market? And of course, here comes back to, well, the Raiders are going to be in on Russell Wilson, which, again, they should be trying to put together a package for Russell Wilson. I'm not a guy who doesn't like Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is a pretty dang good quarterback. I think this last season he showed a lot. He's 100% in command of Gruden's offense now, and I think it's pretty obvious after Gruden's comments this offseason that he's a fan of Carr at this point. But if you're talking Russell Wilson, then your quarterback's available. If you're talking Deshaun Watson, your quarterback's available. I don't care what the team says publicly. If you get a call from Houston or Seattle trying to put a package with an offer that gets you one of those 2 guys, you're taking the deal more than likely. So that's kind of what's going on there. It's been an on again, off again thing for the past 2 off seasons. It's kind of tiring as a Raiders fan, to be honest, but that's what I'm hearing.
So we covered the 2 quarterbacks that, Rob being a Raiders fan, covered Derek Carr. Me being an Eagles fan, covered Carson Wentz. Looks like Jalen Hurts is actually going to be having some of these young rookies come out or not young rookies, young receivers come out and work with him this offseason, which, let me say something. Jalen Hurts, not a huge fan of you yet. I haven't seen that much to say. Jalen Hurts is my guy, but everything you're doing off the field is what I want in a quarterback, and I am hoping you succeed. Um, so we'll switch gears from them 2 teams, and we'll jump into Seattle. Only because Rob had mentioned Russell Wilson. We'll talk Wilson real quick. With Russell Wilson, it seems that he's unhappy with player personnel, which I can't blame him. He's been sacked 400 times in 9 seasons, the most by far. Yeah, he has weapons, but when you don't have an offensive line, how do you expect to have weapons or be able to use them weapons? And that's kind of what you've seen in the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. It didn't matter how great his supporting cast was, if he can't get the ball out because he's getting rushed every single time and can't make an accurate throw, which even with him getting rushed, he was making accurate throws. But then weapons don't matter if you aren't being protected. And I understand why he wants it. It's not that he wants out. I understand that he wants to be having a say in player personnel. I don't think Rob's going to disagree with me with, it's Russell Wilson. If he wants to, tell us who his offensive line is going to be this offseason, if you're Seattle, you listen to it. Um, there's been rumors that, they aren't shopping him. They're taking calls. And I don't think it's so much they're taking calls. Teams are calling, they're listening, but this is going to be another situation like Aaron Rodgers. Nothing's going to come out of this. He's going to stay in Seattle. So we're not going to touch much on that. Rob, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. I mean, like you just said, there's no way you're not gonna go, all right, dude, we'll hear you out. Doesn't mean, we're gonna be able to do everything that you necessarily want, but we'll listen to what you have to say. We're gonna take it into consideration. There's guys you really want, you really like. We'll try and get them for you. Obviously, it's the NFL, so if you're talking trades, you're talking signing guys. Obviously, there's a limit to that. Teams only going to be willing to offer so much money or so much capital in a trade. But I think that they kind of give it in. The only rumblings coming out of Seattle that concern me with this situation is the rumblings of a strain in the relationship between him and Pete Carroll.
Which has been mentioned before.
But now this is coming out. So they got rid of their offensive coordinator when the season ended this year.
Correct. They said Doug Peterson might have gone in there, but that didn't happen.
So now Pete Carroll has come out and said that he got rid of Schottenheimer because of philosophical differences in the way he wanted to do an offense compared to how Pete wants an offense run. We all know how Pete Carroll wants an offense run. He wants a run-first offense that doesn't take a whole lot of risks. And Schottenheimer was a big proponent of let Russ cook. And when they let Russ cook, Russell Wilson was having an MVP season, and then he had one bad month in the middle of it, and Pete Carroll pulled the reins right out from under it. And they completely went back to a run first, more methodical offense. And you could tell that Pete Carroll had taken control of it. And so when he came out and made that comment, Russell Wilson's camp had come out recently and said, well, we have philosophical differences between with how you protected our guy. Basically taking a direct shot at Pete Carroll and the general manager saying, you haven't done anything for my guy.
I don't blame his camp for saying that.
I don't either, because they haven't. I think it's pretty clear that they haven't. It's and it's kind of shocking. I mean, they've literally brought in what, to my remembering, one real offensive line talent since Wilson's been there.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a guy who's basically an all-timer, and you're not getting him top quality protection on the offensive line. I just don't really understand teams that do this and let their quarterback situation get to this point. Like, I can't understand how this situation has gotten this bad in Houston. I don't understand how this situation is getting this bad in Seattle. Like, every other team would bend over backwards for one of these guys to make them happy, and these teams seem to not be doing that. And the last team that stopped kind of taking how their quarterback felt into consideration and put all their faith in their coach and organization was named the New England Patriots. And last time I checked, Tom Brady left, won a championship, and the Patriots were completely abysmal.
Yep. Um, Real quick, this will finish up Seattle. Um, Orlando Brown, right tackle, all pro right tackle, Pro Bowl right tackle, whatever you want to call him, has requested that he is traded from the Baltimore Ravens. He is currently a right tackle. He was drafted to play left tackle, but we all know Ronnie Stanley's there, and he is not taking Stanley's spot. So, what I've read and what it seems to be is the Ravens are allowing his camp to look for a trade partner, and they will go and have conversations. If I'm Seattle, one thing that's going to make Russ happy is going to get somebody like this kid, because if he could play left tackle anything the way he plays right, you got a stud in the making. And he's only 24 years old, 25 years old. So,
Yeah, I completely agree. That should be number one priority on Seattle's to-do list right now, since it's come out that he wants out, is trying to go get this kid. He's played 3 years and he's a two-time Pro Bowler. I mean, that's
and he's not even playing the position of choice. That's the crazy part.
yeah.
He's a
He
two-time
doesn't.
Pro Bowler at right tackle, and he prefers to play left. He wants to be the blind side. If he can play the blind side, anything like the right side, we don't even know what
Yeah,
we have
man.
in Buff or Baltimore doesn't even know what they have in this kid yet. If he can play the left side the way he plays the right,
The problem with that in Baltimore is they have
Stanley
quite possibly the best left tackle in the game right now in Stanley.
understood.
He, I mean, he's without a doubt the best run blocking left tackle in the game, and he's a good pass blocker too. I mean, Lamar Jackson isn't having success or not success because of a lack of a time to throw. That's for sure. He's got time back there before he gets rushed. So I think it's kind of crazy that Baltimore was so easygoing
About letting him like look for a
about
trade
possibly
partner.
letting this kid walk.
Yeah,
I
I
just
thought the
I
same
don't get
thing.
it. I mean, I get that you have some differences, like he wants to play left, you need him to play right, but he's under contract for, I don't know what round he was drafted in, so at least another year, but I'm assuming if he was this good, he was probably a first round pick. And meaning you have him for 2 more years if you pick up a fifth year option. So the only way I could see them letting him walk is if he's on his contract year. And maybe
Which would
that's why
make
they're so
sense.
willing to trade him.
Yeah,
Um, I'll have to dive more into that and see what his contract situation is, because that would make a little more sense to me, but it still wouldn't make a ton of sense unless, I mean, they're pretty much under the assimilation of, okay, well, he's so unhappy, we're going to lose him at the end of the year anyway, so why not trade him and get something for him? And the reason I would still be against it is, and don't you think you can win a Super Bowl?
I mean, if you're
Like
gonna pay
that
Lamar
roster
Jackson
is,
all that money, then I hope you think you
and
can win
that
a
and
Super
that
Bowl.
roster's deep. That roster's deep. I think if they could get uh more of a threat on the outside,
Somebody like Will Fuller.
yeah, a bigger body guy that can get you numbers on the outside of the hashes. I get that they have Hollywood Brown. He's a undersized speedster. He's good, but they're missing a guy who can be that every down go-to guy on the outside. Right
Kind of
now,
like
their every down go-to guy is their tight end.
kind of like how Michael Irvin would say, you're looking for that aggressive guy, the guy that wants to feed his family. Like you got Hollywood Brown, you got him to kind of build an offense like Kansas City did with Tyreek Hill. But as Michael Irvin would say, Tyreek Hill is an aggressive receiver who has speed. He wants to feed his family. So Hollywood Brown isn't as an aggressive as a receiver as Tyreek Hill. So you want that
Yep.
aggressive receiver on the opposite side of Marquise Brown because without that aggressive receiver, it don't matter how quick you are. If you're just out there running the motion and you think you're going to outrun these cornerbacks and these linebackers and these safeties the way you did in high school, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I really think that's their biggest hole. I mean, that defense is loaded at all three levels.
As long as Judon
Loaded
comes
at
back.
line. I don't see any way they can let that kid walk, man. He is a stud on the outside. But cap situation may make them let him walk. But even with Judon gone, he's still they're still loaded at all three levels. More
Yeah.
than most other teams.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. They've done a very good job in the last couple of years drafting. All right, off Baltimore, off Russ, off Orlando Brown. Real quick, make this comment. We'll get off of them because there's not much going on right now. But Dak Prescott, Jerry Jones, the camps been talking. Extension doesn't look like it's coming close. Can't agree on money. They can't agree on the the length of the contract. I don't know if Dallas lets him go, but as of right now, again, I'm on the record for saying this. I do believe he will be playing elsewhere. I know Rob at first was like, he's not going nowhere. Can't see Dallas letting him go. And then it was, all right, maybe we do have Dak on the move. But we're not going to spend much time on that because there's not much right now. It's just both sides are trying to work on a deal. The deal's not close. I believe they could franchise tag him one more time. Um,
They can. It's for an exuberant amount of money, though.
so possibly we see a franchise tag to keep him in Dallas, unless Dallas turns into a Watson Wilson sweepstake here. But I don't see that happening either with the cap issues.
Yeah, the problem with them getting in the Watson Wilson races, I don't know that they have the firepower without trading some of their top guys. But the problem is all their top guys have humongous contracts that the receiving teams I don't think can take on mathematically. I could be wrong, but like if you were thinking about involving a Zeke Elliott or an Amari Cooper in the deal, I don't think that Houston or Seattle has the
The cap
cap
space to
room to
make it work.
take on that contract.
Mm-hmm.
And Seattle, obviously, I don't think would be interested in either of those guys. Honestly, they have good running backs and they have good wide receiving talent. That's not what they need. They need trench guys and they need defense.
Well,
So
with Seattle, Chris Carson is a free agent, and Dallas does have a guy named Demarcus Lawrence they could offer plus picks. Tyler Lockett could be a guy that ends up getting released for money purposes, but again, with
yeah, there's ways I guess they can make it work maybe with Seattle, but I think we both know that Russell Wilson ain't actually on the market. I mean, the deal that somebody I think would have to put together to get him at this point would be pretty incredible. And who's going to do it? I don't think anybody. So
yeah, so Seattle, I mean, like we
Watson
said,
would be more logical, but the Texans have a horrible cap situation. So taking on big contract players from Dallas isn't going to work for them because they have too many bad contracts on the team as it is. So I think personally, I still think Dak's going to stay in Dallas. It's not even that I think that. I think that would be his best move. If I was Dak, I'm trying to stay in Dallas. I'm coming off of a serious injury that makes me questionable. And if I want to be able to earn that big contract again, I'm going to have to prove myself this year. And what better place to prove yourself than in a team that you already know the system, that you already know the receivers? I mean, you're not going to put up better numbers anywhere else. I really don't think that he can. I mean, one, Dallas might have the best receiving core in the NFL between Cooper, Gallup, and CD. And again, it's a system you're already familiar with, a coaching staff you've already know at least a little bit, a playbook you already know. So if I'm trying to prove myself for some big 4 or 5 year deal, whether that's with Dallas or anybody else, I take a 1 year deal in Dallas for whatever number they're offering, 25, 30, and go, okay, I'll take it. I'll go out. I'll put up over 4,000 yards again, like he does all the time, and a bunch of touchdowns, and not throw a ton of picks. And then come to the next offseason, and because he's had such a bad relationship, if he wants to say a big FU to Dallas, then go ahead, because you're going to go be able to go get your money elsewhere. But right now, I don't think you are.
All right, let's switch gears to the Jets. There was a report today. If you don't know, Sam Darnold is being shopped. New York has fielded calls. There was a report today that Sam Darnold would be getting traded to San Francisco. San Francisco and the Jets would be swapping picks, and then the Jets would also receive a future second round pick. Um, with that report coming out, you would have to think that Garoppolo has a landing spot. Um, with Garoppolo possibly having a landing spot, Rob and I both have said it. We think it's New England. We don't expect anybody else to be in this race for Garoppolo. Darnold is very interesting. I think Darnold, even in Denver, I think even if you could get that deal worked out, if you can move Drew Lock if you're Denver and get Sam Darnold, I think Sam Darnold is a very good quarterback. I think that he was just stuck with Adam Gase and then the injuries and then not having weapons. It definitely took a toll in the beginning of his career. He is also a USC product quarterback, which I'm a USC fan, but we don't produce quarterbacks. Hoping he can kind of turn the tide here. I think a fresh start for him, kind of like Carson, where a team's going to actually build around him, where he's going to a team that's ready to play right away. He's just stepping in, is definitely going to help him and his career. I mean, I was very shocked to hear that the 49ers are interested in swapping picks and giving a future second for Darnold. Um, you would expect them to be trading Garoppolo at some point if this deal is to go through, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they're willing to give up that much for Darnold, I can't see them giving up that much for him to back up Jimmy G. I would think you're bringing him in at that point to be your guy, and that's because of all the reports that you've been hearing out of San Francisco that Kyle Shanahan is over it with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's another situation that I understand. I mean, Garoppolo's won games there for sure, but I don't think he's looked necessarily all that great while doing it.
No, in
I think he's the
they were good,
product
it was
of
the
that coach.
defense. The defense
That was
definitely
that
helped them.
defense, and it was Kyle Shanahan scheming that run game.
Yeah, that was a
To
very,
me, I
very big
mean,
run game.
their run game, he has the best scheme for a run game, I think, of any coach in the NFL. The way he schemes that run game is incredible, and he's doing it with guys that are not like household name running backs. And it doesn't matter who comes in. It's like, oh man, this guy got hurt, but this no name guy we drafted in the fourth round came in and he ran for 200 yards this week. So it's obviously a scheme thing and not it's because we have the next Adrian Peterson at running back here.
Speaking of AP, he said he wanted to play with Tampa Bay. Uh,
Shocker.
I mean,
Old guys coming out and say they want to go ring chase in Tampa Bay. Nobody saw this coming.
I mean, we all kind of figured guys would start doing it.
for sure.
I mean, the last quarterback that we could really talk about today is the quarterback that we've been talking about um, in Watson. But before we get into the Watson, real quick, I just wanted to highlight the trade that happened between the Rams and the Lions just recently. We haven't been live since this trade has actually taken place. The Lions actually traded Matt Stafford to the Rams for two first round picks, a third round choice, and Jared Goff. Um, After seeing that trade, there's been a few things in my mind. You got Howie Roseman over here going, oh, then we could definitely get this for Carson because Carson and Stafford are about the same player. But in my mind, um, it makes me wonder, does Philly have to trade two firsts, a third, and Carson to get rid of them? The contracts are very similar with Goff and Carson. Goff didn't come out and say he wanted to be traded. It was more of an organizational decision. And, with them having to give up two first and a third with him, with it being a decision coming from the GM and the head coach, it made me question what exactly does Philly expect to get in a trade, and that they're living this pipe dream that they're going to receive what Detroit got for Stafford. Um, I think if Goff can somewhat turn into a decent quarterback, I mean, some of you guys like him. I don't like him. I personally have been grading him lower than Carson Wentz since the draft. I've always said Carson Wentz was the better of the two quarterbacks. But if Jared Goff can somewhat turn into a quarterback that's useful in Detroit, even if he doesn't, Detroit won this trade.
Uh, yeah, I tend to agree.
I mean,
Well,
the
they
Rams.
won the train. They won the trade on the understanding that if they won the trade if they don't compete, like really compete for a Super Bowl within the next 2 years,
I
like
think the
get
Rams
there.
can
And by
compete.
compete, I mean get. If they can get to a Super Bowl in the next 2 years with Stafford, then you have to say they won the deal, whether they win the Super Bowl or not. If they can get there and be competitive in the Super Bowl, and say, "Oh no, we lost to Mahomes and the stacked Chiefs." Oh my God, it's not a failure. You gave yourself a chance to win the Super Bowl again. So it's kind of tough for me in that regards because it's so early. Early on, I would say, yeah, Detroit wins this is the winner of this trade. But down the road, if the Rams can turn this into a success with Stafford, I think we'll be saying that the Rams won the trade.
Reports came out today that Matt Stafford actually played with a torn UCL this season, and said that the people of Detroit were dealing with much tougher challenges than he was dealing with the injury, so he did not want it reported. Um, just shows you what kind of player and what kind of person Stafford is. I mean, if anybody questioned it,
I've always been a Matt Stafford fan, honestly, personally. I think I know he technically really hasn't done anything in the NFL as far as postseason success, but it's always been clear that he's had the arm talent. And to
yeah, I'm
me,
not
it's
really
always
sure you
been
could
clear
blame him.
that I'm stuck in Detroit. I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
can't do any better. No one
exactly.
else could either. So, again, the best player he ever got to play alongside retired early because he could no longer stand playing for such a terrible organization. An organization at which, by the way, has still not paid him the remainder of his money. And we're not talking about $25 million. Calvin Johnson's owed, I think, $2 million by Detroit, and they refuse to pay him. And they wonder why they're the laughing stock of the league as far as organizations are concerned.
All right, let's jump to Watson. Let's not waste time. Let's not have a 20-minute conversation because We've covered Watson. We know what's going on. Houston doesn't want to trade him. He wants to be traded. He's eventually going to end up getting traded if he comes out, as Rob was saying earlier today. If he comes out and states that he wants out, they're going to have to trade him. But until then, I think he's in Houston. It's going to take a team like the Jets or a team like Miami, who's got 4 first-round picks, and over the next 2 years, who say, here's 4 firsts and 3 second-round picks. I don't think he moves unless that happens. I don't think a team's going to offer that unless they become very impatient, start not liking prospects, and they can't get a quarterback in free agency. Um, maybe Miami with Tua being there, they might be like, we'll give you 4 firsts and Tua. I mean, I don't know if that gets it done. Xavier Howard is a name to look out for if Miami really wants to make that push for Deshaun Watson. I think Houston receiving Xavier Howard would be a very good fresh start for them. It start getting that defense in the right direction. And I'm not going to sit here and say Watson's getting traded in the next week. Watson might not get traded for another 2 months, and he might not get traded at all. So I'm just going to let
Yeah,
Rob
I tend
talk
to
real quick.
agree. I think as of right now, I'm done shaking down the Deshaun Watson tree. Houston has sent a clear message that their goal is to mend the fences with him. So, as Matt was saying, like I said earlier, the only way I see him getting out now is he's going to have to go on to a sports talk show, publicly come out and say, I refuse to play for this organization. If they don't trade me, it's still not going to make me play here. I'll sit out a whole season. I'll void my contract. I don't care. I don't care about the money. If he comes out and does that, then I think you see him get traded, but he's basically going to have to threaten to Le'Veon Bell and just say, I don't care about the money. I don't like it here. I don't like this organization, and I will not play for you. If you don't trade me, I will sit out. I will void my contract. I don't care. He's gonna have to go to that extreme of a level to leverage getting moved. And that's why we haven't seen guys be able to leverage trades in the NFL. It's not like the NBA. The players don't have the power in the NFL. The organizations do. It's a little bit different. So that's all I have to say about Watson until we start hearing some more definitive stuff around him and his camp.
Yeah. So that's it for us on quarterback Thursday, Wednesday, whatever you guys want to call it. We will be back hopefully tomorrow. We're gonna try to cover the Usman fight and then see what else is going on. Maybe talk some Flyers, talk some Sixers. But until then, you guys have a good one.